Okay, thank you for coming. Welcome to Unite Community's Fringe meeting, which is going to launch a report that we're publishing today. The report is not fit for purpose, and it's obviously about universal credit and what a complete, cruel car crash universal credit is in people's lives. I've got a good panel here today that are all incredibly experienced on universal credit. Rosalind Jones is a Daily Mirror journalist who has been covering universal credit since its inception, and I don't personally know another journalist that has done as much to expose the cruelty and the faults in universal credit. So I'm going to hand over to Ros.
I wonder if you can find a bit of room to stand up. Let's try. So thanks very much for having me here today. Thanks to everyone that came yesterday to our Real Britain Fringe as well. It's a shame that we have to keep talking about so many of these issues kind of over and over again, how broken our welfare safety net is. I just wanted to thank Unite for all the work that Unite and especially Unite Community have done on universal credit, and for the fantastic reports that they've just produced, which is really sort of pinpointing a lot of the flaws in universal credit. As a trade union, Unite could decide to just represent people in work, and I personally find it very moving when trade unions also support people who are out of work and disabled people, and recognise that that's all part of the same movement. And I think in these days of divide and rule, it's really important that Unite Community have said, you know, we're all Daniel Blake, and we must all stand together. So, of course, in the sort of modern exploitative gig economy world, being in or out of work is no longer as clear cut as it once was, and universal credit is the sort of matches that. We know that of the 1.6 million people on universal credit at the beginning of this year, 34% were in employment, and usually in far from what we might think of as kind of decent jobs. Universal credit has impoverished millions of people. It really just leaves a trail of food banks and money lenders, loan sharks in its wake, wherever it opens up. We were just talking before about some areas that were originally kind of pilot areas, which have now been in this level of poverty for a really long time. So if you were initially a pilot area, that's been going on such a long time now in your community that the poverty is becoming really entrenched. And the Unite survey had some really shocking findings. 80% of parents identified birthdays, Christmas and other family events as times when it was difficult to make ends meet. 69% of parents had skipped meals, 55% could not afford school uniforms or school equipment, 52% they couldn't afford school trips. So this is about not just about sort of hunger and misery and destitution, but the ways in which children's life chances are being damaged and affected every minute that this policy continues to carry on. In preparing for this fringe, I dug out the DWP press release, which heralded the very first day of the government's flagship reform for universal credit. It's a bit hard to know whether to laugh or cry. It said, universal credit is nothing less than the start of a fundamental cultural shift of the welfare system. The press release said, this will revolutionise the way people experience the welfare state. And what a revolution that's been. And it certainly wasn't a bloodless revolution, as David Cameron tried to intimate the other day. It's a revolution that's cost people's hopes and dreams and potential and even lives. Philip Alston, the UN rapporteur, recently said that universal credit, no single programme embodies the combination of the benefit reforms and the promotion of austerity programmes more than universal credit. He saw that as a really central way in which the government had tied together its rhetoric about scroungers with this new kind of punitive system. And he concluded the benefit had fallen into universal discredit. After years of reporting stories of Tory welfare reform, just when you think you've heard it all before, along comes another story of universal credit. We've been talking about some earlier today, just horrible stories every time people write in or talk to us, or whenever we're in food banks and homeless shelters, you know, universal credit just comes up every time. So I was thinking about a place in Liverpool recently where we recently reported for Real Britain about how mothers were being forced to leave their newborn babies in hospital because of universal credit. They were having to come home without them because they didn't have basic things. Social services wouldn't let a baby come home to somewhere that didn't have you know, these basic necessities, into a cold house without a cot, without somewhere to sleep and so on. What was amazing was the community response there had been to set up a baby bank. So as well as food banks, we now have baby banks opening across the country, scores and scores of them, where mothers are coming in to get a pram or a blanket or some nappies. And you know, what greater indictment could there be of this government than the fact that baby banks are opening? So I also just wanted to mention another story that, again, obviously all the stories that we write about really touch us, but this story really touched me. And it was this lovely couple called Tony and Sue who had a dog called Buster, and they were living in a tent in the woods near to York, basically because of universal credit. They kind of had two fly-tipped sofas that they were sort of sleeping on, a tent that somebody else had found from somewhere. And this was during, so it was last summer, so 2018, it was absolutely boiling hot, and the only water that they had was, there was like an allotment tap that was about a 40-minute walk away to go and get water. And Sue, it was quite a simple, one of those things where people's lives kind of go wrong just quite quickly. So Sue had a live-in job in a pub, so she worked in a pub and that was the roof overhead. And her husband Tony basically had a heart problem, so he wasn't able to work. He was normally sort of in IT. So when she lost the job in the pub went into administration. She lost the job. She's got nowhere to live. They go to the DWP for help. Guess what? You've got to wait 5 weeks for any assistance. So Tony said, before that, we honestly believed there was a safety net for people like us. We'd worked 80-hour weeks in our previous jobs, and yet there was no safety net with universal credit. And then they talked about all the other problems, which I'm sure we'll hear about today. In fact, it was online, so Tony was saying, you know, if you're homeless, you can't charge your phone, you can't afford to call somebody, and if you miss a message because your phone's run out of charge, you're going to get sanctioned because you haven't responded. So you're just going into this cycle of ways in which the state starts to sort of stack up against you. And Sue kind of summed it up by saying the irony is, with universal credit, you are never in credit, you are just always in arrears, basically. So it's a pretty stupid name for a benefit. Anyway, what was amazing was they were still incredibly generous to others. It was almost like where they were living by this river in York was becoming more and more people were coming to live down there, partly because there were lots of trees and people were kind of foraging for food. Sue had been a chef in the pub, so she was able to kind of try and make dinners out of bits of food that she was finding in the woods, and to try and help other people. And they talked to me about how they found this man who was he'd been collapsed in a lane nearby where they were camping. We thought he'd died, Tony said, but when he woke up, he produced this big bag of like freshwater mussels that he'd been collecting out of the river. He was so hungry, he'd just been smashing the shells and eating them raw because he was so desperate. And obviously that had made him very ill, and he'd collapsed by the river. And anyway, these people had dragged him to the sort of makeshift sofas that they were living on, and they had helped him and cooked him food. You know, these people that are in such a desperate situation themselves, helping other people where the state has totally failed them, is just, that story's really kind of stayed in my mind. So we know that the Tories wanted to reduce the welfare benefit bill. That was one of their aims of welfare reform. And of course, there's one way that you really can reduce the benefits bill, and that is by shutting people out of the welfare system altogether. Now that should kind of be an unthinkable solution to the problem, to think, well, one way to save money is we'll just shut the door and they won't have to spend any money. So universal credit shuts people out of the benefit system in 2 ways, which I'm sure people know. So Firstly, it's been a kind of Trojan horse to smuggle conditionality into in-work benefits. So that sanction and things only used to exist in out-of-work benefit, but universal credit has been a way to smuggle that into in-work benefits. So that millions are now facing draconian sanctions for kind of tiny infringements. And the second way is quite simple. It's just by leaving people to starve for the first 5 weeks of the new benefit, often at the most vulnerable time of their lives. And we know that more than 1 in 10 people actually wait more than 10 weeks. So who can survive 10 weeks with no income coming in? And it's interesting, when we talked about universal credit at our Real Britain Fringe yesterday, somebody from the DWP was in the audience, and afterwards they told me that I needed to get my facts right about universal credit, and I hadn't mentioned advance payments. So guess what, you can borrow, if you're really in bad trouble with universal credit, you can borrow some money, and then you'll be paying it back for months and months and months, which will mean that you never have enough money for the rest of the time. So in case that lady was here again today, I've covered advance payments. So, of course, the government won't admit this is about saving money, but Philip Alston was having none of that, basically, in his report. He said the rationales offered for the delay are entirely illusory, and the motivation strikes me as a combination of cost saving, enhanced cash flows, and wanting to make it clear that being on benefits should involve hardship. So he felt that's what the government was trying to do for universal credit. Instead, recipients are immediately plunged into further debt and inevitably struggle mightily to survive. So the bad news is that the Trussell Trust figures that were out last week show the problem just gets deeper and deeper the longest that universal credit is there. We've known this for a while, but the Trussell Trust has now done this proper research which basically says, you know, if it's here for X amount of time, there's X amount of poverty. If it's there for an additional year, that doubles. So we all know that anecdotally, but it's fantastic that reports like that and the Unite report are starting to put statistics and facts in the way of this evil policy. So without change, there's going to be by 2022, 7 million families will be on universal credit. So this is coming all across the country, rolling out misery, food banks and loan sharks in its way. And Alston concluded that it was not just a disgrace but a social calamity and an economic disaster all rolled into one, which to me sounds like a fitting epitaph for universal credit when Labour sweeps it away. Thanks.
Another thing that the United Nations rapporteur Philip Alston said, he actually said that if you got a group of misogynists around a table and asked them to create a welfare system that will be damaging for women, you could not have come up with a better system than universal credit. 70% of austerity the cuts have fallen on the shoulders of women and obviously children. So I want to introduce Kerry Wilkes, who is a Unite community member from the North East and who herself claims universal credit, and Kerry's going to tell you about what her life on this benefit is like. Thank you, Kerry.
Well, the first word I'll say is a bit thick. The make out, we haven't got the full rollout from where I'm from yet in Middlesbrough, but they entice you by giving you this £1,500 within an hour of applying for it online, but they don't tell you you've got to pay your rent out of that. You go and see an advisor, you treat like a robot, a number, you treat like your national insurance number, you're not treated like an actual person. You can't ask any questions on the phone. When you make your appointment, you get told off, you've got to wait for your appointment. It's just really, really bad. You have to live every month until a week before you due your payment to see what you're going to have to live on for that month. And no one can live like that. You can't just guess what you're going to have for that month. And obviously it's the autumn months are coming up, Christmas is coming up, and how are you supposed to live like that? But one thing I will say, I'm quite clued up on universal credit, because not that I do know a lot about it, I've done a lot of research around it. But when I applied for it, they verified me with not even my actual ID and my actual name. And within an hour of applying for it, I got £1,500 in my bank. That was it. And I just had to attend an appointment and say yes. And then, but when I went to the appointment, she wasn't aware that you have to pay your 4 weeks rent out of this now, Kerry. You have to do this out of this now, Kerry. Nothing. And then the next day, well, maybe 2 days after, I had my landlord be on house number 4, like, Kerry, when you pay me rent for this month, straight away. Where if people weren't as savvy about it and they didn't know, they would just spend the 50. I know people who've done it, just spent the £1,500, got themselves into rent arrears. And what good trick they're really coming out with now is if you've had an overpayment or tax credit, say 3 years ago, they're starting to take out your universal credit. And I know for a fact they're going to do that to me. And then claims though they're giving you this big massive amount of money, but you're only getting the minimum amount of money to live on anyway. Then they're taking, I would say, nearly £200 a month off you to pay this initial loan off. Where that, it just can't be right. And you have to, well, you can't ask, you just get told no. It's the most demoralising thing that this government have ever done, is to introduce universal credit. And I know people like who are working and they're upset. They said, well, what's the point in working? I might as well just be on the dole and sit on my backside all day, because you get no better thought of. And I remember Theresa May saying, work pays, work pays. It doesn't anymore. It makes people worse off. And I know people have wanted to kill themselves because of universal credit and what they're going to do to feed the kids. And I will all mind, I couldn't afford school uniforms during the summer, and you have to go to certain places. But I managed because I've got my mum. But other people haven't got the mums, and other people haven't got that support there, and it's a horrible thing. And I mean, I'm a university student, and they're going to take 63 pence out of every pound of my universal credit for my student finance that I have to pay back, which is, to me, is just not fair either. So I'm paying it double whammy over a long time. But yeah, you're trying to do better for yourself, but it's literally so they've got your foot on the head and they're just trying to keep you down. If you're not in a certain bracket of earnings, you've got no chance with this lot in government, none. Is that all
right? Just before I introduce Mike, I just want to give you the response of the DWP to our survey. We put out bits of our survey at the beginning of the summer. We had a Unite National Day of Action Against Holiday Hunger, and so we just drew a couple of the stats out of the report on how difficult it was for families to make ends meet. And at that point, the DWP had just commissioned a PR company to spend $250,000 of our taxpayers' money on positive PR about universal credit, because journalists like Ross keeps getting it wrong and keeps painting it as a really bad thing. So this $250,000 spend, they've obviously employed a few more press officers. So what they said about our survey was that because it was 1,200 people, which is a fairly decent survey, it's a decent piece of research that is pretty much accepted as being sorry, that's the word. So anyway, the DWP said that our survey only represented 0.001% of claimants, so therefore it's unscientific and it's unrepresentative. So Kerry, your experience is,
things are worse than that.
Yeah, and I do encourage people to take a read of this, and particularly read the quotes that claimants wrote when they filled out the survey, because that's people's real life experience, not the propaganda that the DWP are putting out now. So I just want to introduce our next speaker, Mike Amesbury, who is the DWP Shadow Minister for Employment, and is going to tell you what sort of vision that the Labour Party are going to have when they get into power within the next couple of months.
Yes, yeah, great. Thanks very much. It's great to be here. It's great to be an event with Unite. I'm a trade unionist by background, different union, Unison. I worked for the Labour Party one stage, so I'm also a member of the GMB. Well, I've worked closely with Unite. It's various guises over the years, and Steve's a brilliant, brilliant guy. Excellent report, and it reflects the reality of people's experiences. And Kerry, I mean, you know, who could put it across firsthand as somebody that obviously experiences universal credit and the disaster it is day in, day out. But in terms of my background, I was, before I was an MP, my real job, my former job, I've worked as a careers advisor and then for Connections. So I did have some involvement in trying to get particularly young people into education, employment and training. So hopefully that can come from an informed decision. I'm originally from Wythenshawe, which was the largest council estate in Europe. I became an MP 2.5 years ago and I took a seat off a Tory, which is always a pleasure, in 2017. But we did that for a purpose, of course. You know, we're Labour politicians in the Labour movement for a purpose. And you know, one of those reasons was, it was very recently, it was a young woman in my constituency, that was the Runcorn part of the constituency, and the woman's called Elaine. And Elaine was a young mother and she had 4 children. Elaine was very ill, she was ill with mental health, anorexia as well. But she had the displeasure of being involved with this draconian welfare state social security system that these Tories have introduced. And she was sanctioned, and she ignored the letters, and eventually she stopped eating and looking after herself. Elaine was found frozen to death. She died. That death is as a result of the Tories' approach to social security. Social security is used as a vehicle for austerity, as a vehicle for cuts. £37 billion per year taken out of the system. Think about that, £37 billion a year. And who would be given tax cuts to? I know everybody knows in this room. £110 billion to the richest corporations and individuals in society. That's their approach to social security. Same old nasty Tories. And things have got to change. The stories of Sue, the stories of Tony, the stories of Kerry. That's why we need a Labour government. So what we've got to do in terms of social security is, again, let's create a socially just system. Compassion at its heart from day one. That's cradle to grave. And we've been going through this large consultation, the Appropriate Policy Commission, which I know we're reporting back tomorrow. It's going to have 3 strands. Immediately, there's got to be a rescue package to deal with 5-week wage, to deal with the freeze in benefits, to deal with the 2-child limit, to deal with the advance payments, which are loans on top of loans, which create even more debt. That's something that we need to get on day one, those first 100 days of a Labour government. The next strand is rebuilding our social security system and piloting new ideas. I know John has spoke about universal citizens income. You know, that's something that we really need to take forward. So social security again is about ensuring people have not only enough to live on, but lead fulfilling lives and help them get into opportunities when they desire to get into opportunities, and people pay in and then they take out at those appropriate stages in life. So it needs that flexibility. And the third strand, you referred to Theresa May saying make work pay. We've certainly got to make work pay. And again, you know, as a start, a £10 living wage. That's what a Labour government would do. But of course, there are plenty of employers out there, certainly as Unite and others know, that are not paying the current minimum wage or the fake living wage this government introduced. I think it's 439,000. So we'll set up a Ministry of Employment, so regulation with teeth, and make sure we go after those people. And again, let's put the referee back on the pitch and regulate. Let's extend collective bargaining and celebrate the good that trade unions do, not only in terms of industry, the workplace, but the community. In terms of universal credit, it is decided to stop universal credit. I think John, I was in the audience. He didn't know I was in the audience. I was at the back yesterday, you know, and I think he said something like, "We need to see the bloody back of universal credit." Yes, you might correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. Look, there's a direction of travel that we need to take, and I'd suggest that's probably not far from the truth. Yes, I know there will be announcements in the conference, but thank you for all that you do collectively, highlighting the reality of this horrendous situation, and as a result of the Tories and their austerity agenda. Thank you.
Duncan Smith introduced universal credit six odd years ago. It was the most radical overhaul of the social security system in generations and generations. But what they did something really, really cynical at the same time. What they did was they took £50 million out of the legal aid budget, which enabled people to fight welfare and housing claims. So not only did they introduce this chaotic, confusing, crazy system, they took people's ability to fight it. What Unite Community has done, and Steve's going to talk about why we set up Unite Community, but we can't plug that gap. But Unite Community have trained up, they've done advocacy training, and they do peer-to-peer support for claimants with enormous success. So with work capability assessments, PIP assessments, Unite Community members go along and they've helped represented. And we've found that our people have had an 80% success rate in helping people get their claims back. The last budget that George Osborne was responsible for, he actually found £50 million for the DWP's legal to fight people that were appealing against their claims. So it's amazing how they manage to find money when they need to. That magic money tree does sometimes come up with the goods. And I just want to say as well that the difficulty that claimants, I get about 10, 12 people contacting me a week that are on universal credit. Heart-rending stories, and quite often people are suicidal. So I keep the phone number of the Samaritans on my desk, and I am giving that out about 3 times a week, and I'm telling people, please don't do anything to harm yourself. Life will get better. I don't know if their life will get better. Only a Labour government will mean that their life will get better. So I think we have to do everything we can to make sure that we stop universal credit. So I just want to introduce our last speaker, and then we're going to have a good discussion. Steve Turner, who's Unite's Assistant General Secretary. Steve's my boss. And
He's not.
Steve, absolutely. Steve is in charge of Unite Community and has been very, very vocal as an anti-austerity campaigner. So Steve, over to you.
Right. Well, look, thanks very much for that, Leanne, and thanks for organising this fringe at lunchtime. What a fantastic fringe it is. Apologies for my lateness. I was in listening to John's contribution in the hall, during which, of course, he did pledge to scrap universal credit. Along with a whole host of other radical economic policies, of course, that are going to transform our economy into a socialist economy and the election of a Jeremy Corbyn-led Labour government just as quickly as we can do that. So look, I just wanted to say a huge thanks to all of you as well, because you're not just passively sitting in this room, you're active in your communities, you're active in your unions, you're active in your workplaces, and many of you, of course, have been very, very active over a long period of time in the fight against austerity, of which universal credit and its introduction is just one element. And I want to thank Kerry for a fantastic, really moving, inspiring contribution there from the heart, from somebody that's, you know, in the forefront of the attack that universal credit is on some of the most vulnerable in our society, of course. And I want to thank Ros as well, because she is the conscience of our movement. We always say it, and she's there. Not many journalists get out and get their hands dirty, talking to people about their real lives and the impact that some of the political choices that are being made, because these are political choices that the government are taking, of course, and you can make different choices in life and spend money differently in life, and that's exactly what we intend to do under a Labour administration, of course. But Ros is there day in, day out, travelling up and down the country, meeting people, getting into the heart of our communities, and then putting those stories out inside the Daily Mirror. And it's a fantastic thing that you do, and if you weren't doing it, there wasn't anybody else out there that's doing that. So huge thanks to you as well, Ros. And I'm so proud of what our union's done. You know, you make choices, we all make choices. Politics is about choices. Well, our union made a choice. It made a choice that it was going to stand up against austerity, it was going to fight the campaign and build an organisation to defeat austerity, and we largely did. I mean, if you listen to the Tories now, of course, they're saying austerity's over, so we all pack off home and celebrate. The reality is, of course, it's not over. It's far from over. Austerity politics is very much confronting us on a daily basis, and it will continue to do so all the time. This lot are in Downing Street and in government, of course. But we did establish the People's Assembly Against Austerity. We established the Labour Anti-Austerity Group, and anyone that was at the Fringe last night, what a fantastic annual event that is now at Labour Party Conference, where we get a whole parade of shadow, soon-to-be Secretaries of State, not shadow anything, but Secretaries of State, coming up and talking to us about the radical changes that they're going to be introducing. And I'm incredibly proud of us for doing that, because if we hadn't done that when so many others were running away, when things were dark, we were in a dark place, when the politics of neoliberalism was a global enterprise, when it was being led by, you know, not just the Tories, but it has to be said, previous Labour governments as well as the economic way forward, we stood up collectively. We stood up and fought the anti-austerity message. And it was only because of the work that we've done consistently over a long, long period of time that we were in a position when that opportunity came around to elect Jeremy Corbyn as the leader of our party, and for our party to now be an openly stated anti-austerity party. And we can all collectively be incredibly proud of that, because that doesn't just happen. Nothing just happens in life. You have to work for it, you have to make it happen. And it was that consistent argument that allowed us to do that. I'm also incredibly proud during this whole period of what we did to establish our Unite community membership. This has given a real voice to those people. It's taken unions back into our communities again. All right, it's Unite that's doing it, but it's taken trade unionism and our values of solidarity and unity and dignity and equity and justice back into our communities, trying to give people, some of the most desperate people in society, some of the most vulnerable people in society that felt isolated, not listened to, let alone having an opportunity to voice their concerns themselves, an opportunity to join our union, become a collective organisation for good inside their communities, and to make a very real difference. And they have made a difference. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples up and down the country where our community members are out there day in, day out, fighting the fight, organising in their communities amongst those that are not in paid employment. They're not in paid employment at all. And traditionally, unless you go back to the 30s and the unemployed workers' unions and the rest of it, have had no voice, no place inside their trade union movement. Well, we opened our union to give those people a voice, to give those people a sense of collective identity and purpose. And I'm incredibly proud of the way that Unite did that and continues to do that. And I'm incredibly proud of our Unite community members. Because you do, and I know some of you are with us today, but you do a fantastic job day in, day out, inspiring people. to make a difference in their own lives. And we can only do that when we stand in unity and solidarity, collectively together. And that's what Unite Community was established for, and I think that's what it's achieved over its very short lifespan, but it's an ongoing project. And then, of course, it was Unite Community that worked with us to put together what is a fantastic report. Devastating reading. I mean, anyone who reads this, listens to the story, Kerry's story, and it doesn't put a tear in your eye, shouldn't be it. You know, we shouldn't be at low conference. We shouldn't be doing what we're doing, because there are tales of woe in here that are, we're the 5th richest nation on this planet. The 5th richest nation on this planet. Don't tell me we can't provide dignity to those that find themselves in a very difficult position. Don't tell me we can't provide solidarity and get back to the principles, not of the welfare state, but of social security.
Yeah.
It was a social security net. It was solidarity. It was solidarity for those that found themselves in a difficult place. And who's sitting in this room could, not for the grace of God go I, not have found themselves in a very difficult place. It's incredibly easy to find yourself in a very dark corner sometimes, whether you're in work or whether you're out of work. And social security and our model of protection and solidarity, we can be incredibly proud of what we did with previous Labour governments to establish that base of welfare security, solidarity security, social security. And we need to get back to that. So let's take this away, have a read of this, but don't just plant it somewhere. Do something with it. Do something with it. Share it with your work colleagues. Share it with those that can share it with others. We've got to get the message out about the damaging impact that universal credit is having on our people, of course. So I wanted to thank those that have participated in compiling that, because that's not an easy job to do, and it was our Unite Community members actually that were outside job centres and on the high streets talking to people and gathering this evidence, of course, yeah, the government just dismissed as being irrelevant. It's a very small sample. Well, actually, it's 1,600 people or so that came to us and told us their stories. And so it is a damning evidence, actually, of the impact that universal credit's had on, as I've said many, many times, some of the most vulnerable within our community. And I just wanted to read you a little story of someone. She's not actually in the book, and we changed her name, of course, so that we can protect her. So we've called her Emma, but her story's a true story. And Emma's a National Health Service worker. She works in our hospitals, and she was in a horrible marriage, an abusive marriage where she was not just physically and psychologically abused, but she was raped as well by a partner during a long history of abuse. Well, she had 2 children, young children, and in the end she left her husband. She left her partner. She was brave enough to leave her partner. She had a disability, and because of her disability she couldn't work more than 24 hours a week. But she was the breadwinner, and she decided that she could make it go alone with her children. She was moved from working tax credits to universal credit, and she immediately lost £350 a month as that disability part of her benefits were cut. £350 a month with the shift to universal credit. Her wages were paid on the last Wednesday of the month, which meant that she had additional problems because that didn't suit the way that universal credit is paid. It's not flexible in the way it makes its payments. So her claims stopped, she had long periods of no money, and her life eventually spiraled completely out of control to the point that she had a complete breakdown. Now she's now out of that with support, but when she spoke to us, this is the damning piece of evidence. She said that she told Unite that if she'd have known from the start what she'd go through, she would have stayed with her abusive, rapist husband. How do we get to that point in society where a woman who's abused, who's raped, who's psychologically and physically abused over a long period of time with 2 young kids, feels that she'd rather stay in that abusive relationship with a rapist than take the chances with universal credit to build a new life for herself? And it's because of those stories, and Kerry's story, and all of those stories in our report, that we'll fight and we'll fight and we'll continue to fight. We'll never stop the fight. Never stop the fight. the fight to bring justice and dignity to our people. And that's what this is about. And we're only ever going to do that, of course, not just industrially in our workplaces, in our communities with our community members, but with political support from a socialist Labour government. That's the reality of it. So I'll just leave you with this parting shot. And I always say it because it matters. We have opportunities in life, but we're only opportunities. The challenge for us is to take those opportunities, and we've got an opportunity in the coming weeks, maybe a month, certainly before Christmas, to get rid of these bastards once and for all. But it's not just going to happen. It's not just going to happen. It's going to happen because people like you, who do a lot already, are going to do more. And you're going to take this message back into your workplaces, back into your communities, back into the pubs and the buses that you travel on, back into our community centres and our libraries and our homes, wherever it is that you're having discussions with people about the importance of booting this lot out of power and replacing them with a Labour government that's going to make the difference that we need to make for our society overall. And that's a choice that you've got. It's a choice that you've got. Now we've got to take that choice, we've got to get busy, we've got to fight the fight of our lives. So solidarity, and thanks very much, colleagues.
Right, we've got some time. We're at 10 minutes for. Yeah, okay. So just going to take some questions. Okay, I'll take about 3 at a time. So I do know quite a few faces here. So Casey with the red scarf, and then Claire, and then Dave.
Firstly, just to say I was delighted that the affiliate section put homelessness as a priority ballot. Credit to you guys. And my question really is about the link between homelessness and universal credit. Very close to where I live, we were late into universal credit, but Ashton-under-Lyne was one of the first there. And that has now got one of the highest densities of homelessness. And I think the link needs to be sort of more closely looked into. There's an amazing story there. If you go and check out Pauline Town at the station, she just won the Golden Spade at Diggers for her work with the homelessness. And she's just a pub landlady, you know? But the issue and the point I want to make is that this is probably only the tip of the iceberg, because so many claimants are being forced into homelessness and completely out of the system. And the survey methods used for this probably didn't actually reach a lot of these people. They're dropped out. So I suppose my question is, can we start to focus in that area in our publicity, because I think it's horrendous.
Thanks, Lucy. Claire?
Thanks very much. Claire Gamble from Stockton North. I wanted to just talk briefly about the kind of language that we use. Over the moon that universal credit is going to be scrapped under a Labour government. But I think in terms, and I've done this myself, I've seen other people do it within the trade union movement, the Labour movement. We talk about conditionality and deservability, and it's like, and this concept is like, you know, I've worked my whole life, and now that I'm out of work, I can't get anything. Just because I've worked doesn't mean I'm more deserving than somebody who's disabled, and all it does is build that divide and conquer language even further. So I think, you know, my question is, how do we tackle that? And I suppose the next campaign is to people who will say, but I'll wait and hear what Margaret Greenwood says tomorrow.
Thank you, Leanne. My name is Dave Allen. I'm a member of Unite as well. Sorry, brother. I'm not actually a member of Unite Community. I'm a member of the industrial section of Unite. And the difference between myself and Curry and Steve, and Steve and Leanne is that Curry and I pay our subscriptions, and we peer Steve and Leanne, excellent officers that they are, and they are responsible for driving the policy that we set through. Now, I agree with the sister there with the red cravat on. It is absolutely vital that we link housing to this. The policy until last year wasn't stop universal credit, it was pause and fix universal credit. And we in Unite, and I had the privilege at the TUC in Manchester of moving the change of policy from pause and fix to stop and scrap. It isn't just going to stop, to stop and scrap. And John McDonnell committed to doing that today. But when I was in Manchester, comrades, I walked down Deansgate, which is a long street in Manchester, and I had a lot of money in my pocket. And by the time I got to the other end, I had nothing in my pocket because I couldn't walk past the number of people who were sitting there. And I had emptied my pocket, I had nothing left, and I hadn't made a slightest scrap of difference to their situation. So we need to look at linking housing to stopping and scrapping universal credit, and a benefit system that works in the interest of claimants and the whole of society, and not just the Tories who want to cut it. That's my thank you.
That's all right. Okay. Sorry, I don't know your name. Maria, Ruth, and Rory.
Thank you very much, Maria McCall, Enfield, Unite Community. I'd like to know if we've started to put meat on the bones of what we're going to replace it with. And are Unite feeding into the Labour manifesto? Have you got a seat at the table? And do you have any idea yet of what that's going to look like? Thank you.
Ruth. Yeah.
Hi, Ruth, I'm from Unite's industrial section as well. And my branch represents advice workers, and I think the announcement, the point Leanne made about the cuts to legal aid, and that was compounded by the cuts to local authorities, so that funding for advice centres plummeted. There was £1 billion taken out of legal aid in 5 years, and that has given people both the awfulness of the situation they're in and very little skills help to challenge that. One of the problems that's arisen now is there's a lack of skills. Law students don't learn about certain aspects of housing law, about social security law, because there is no work in it. And I think we need a really good joined up strategy. And I'm really conscious that a lot of people in this room will have acquired a lot of expertise in fighting universal credit, and we need to find ways to help those activists get appropriate jobs through the investment that Labour will bring.
So Rory, there's a mic in front of you, mate.
Thank you. Rory Heap, Vice Chair of Kent Unite Community. I just want to make the point really, and in doing so pose a question, which is, it has been a long journey for Unite Community members in raising the issue of policy around universal credit, and I think that we can take as much credit alongside other people like DPAC, Disabled People Against the Cuts. And it makes me nearly cry with pride to hear that John McDonnell has finally used the word scrap in the context of the Labour Party. But it's a systemic problem that we have here. I mean, it's always easy to, no, I don't mean that. It's always tempting to focus on individual cases. But we should never forget that this has been a systematic attack by a vicious, deliberately vicious Tory government, not just in terms of universal credit, but just in the whole attack on welfare claimants and disabled people. And it's been not just about diminished lives, it's been about deaths, thousands of deaths. So the question is, when we talk about how are we going to respond beyond the current policy review to ensuring that we are able to talk very clearly and plainly, not just about anti-austerity measures, but about pro-claimant policies and strategies, because I think claimants are electorally difficult. And I think that's why we've had this problem about getting scrap in here. So we have to make claimants legitimate beneficiaries of our socialist system.
Thanks. to the points we've made. I just want to give a plug to Unite magazine. Our general editor, Amanda Campbell, was there, and I just want to thank Amanda that she's done the most amazing 6-page spread on universal credit. Amanda, do you just want to say something? I'm frightened that people will run off without you saying something.
Thanks very much, Leanne. Yeah, we've got all the stories in here. I've called it universal discredits. And if you have a story and would like to tell me that, if you're a Unite member, please come and talk to me afterwards and we'll pick this up, because we are not letting this drop for a moment. And I think in our next issue, maybe Mike, you could have a chat to us about what Labour are going to do. I think that'd be a really good analysis for our next edition.
Okay. We've just gotten a new speaker, so could the panel, can we just do a real quick response to that? And Marsha, if it's okay, I'll bring you in if you want to speak. Yeah.
Happy to say.
Okay, Mike, do you want to respond to the questions from the floor?
Yes, I didn't get everybody's name, so do excuse me. So I'll start with Rory. I mean, obviously we were in the room here when John, we kind of made the announcement yesterday in the Unite event, but obviously used the words scrap universal credit. And you're right, we need to, how do we replace that? So we spoke about those I spoke about those three strands, so an immediate rescue package to deal with the 5-week wait, advance payments, those loans, do away with that, debt on top of debt, the benefits freeze, the two-child limit, and what relates to homelessness there, Tracy mentioned that, Dave and others, of course, we need to have direct payments against the landlords and social landlords. That has certainly been driving indebtedness, evictions and homelessness up and down the country. And I know Greater Manchester was cited there, and Ashton-under-Lyne. I used to, in a former life as well, work for Angie Rayner, so I actually know the pub landlady used talking about been to some of the events in the pub, and of course that was an area like my area, Weaver Vale and Holton. That was one of the original pilots in terms of universal credit. I mean, rough sleeping has been driven up, I mean, 250% since 2010. So cuts have consequences. That £37 billion spoke about taking out of social security. That's a direct consequence of that. And of course, to scrap universal credit, to change the social security system, to make sure it's just with compassion at its heart, we've got to have a Labour government. So beyond this conference, it means each and every one of us getting out there with our friends and neighbours and actually doing some of that what might seem monotonous stuff. Every leaflet delivered, every door knocked upon, every conversation will get a Labour government, so we can implement that manifesto, that radical, bold manifesto, and get rid of universal credit.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Claire's point and Rory's point really as well about language, because I think I believed all along that the only way that the Tories were able to implement the whole austerity programme was by introducing this language of scroungers and striders. There was like a whole language, and it was the DWP putting out stories to journalists about families where there's 8 children and they're all on benefits, and there's certain types of people, and I see this all the time when I approach the DWP with stories. They often try to kind of quietly malign the family in some way and say, oh, the issue's a bit bigger than you might think. There's issues at home. It's really shameful, and sometimes I have to remind them to say, you're actually civil servants, you shouldn't be maligning people, that's not your job. Also, we also spoke earlier about how many of our case studies will get followed up by the Daily Mail, for example. We might then go and knock on those people's doors to try and see if they're lying about the things that they're claiming. So it's a hostile environment for people in welfare. So I guess with our stories, I know the example that I gave in the story that I told, they were talking about having worked 80-hour weeks before finding themselves on universal credit, but what we try to do is just tell as huge variety of stories as possible. So sometimes it would be disabled people, sometimes it would be people who've not been able to find work, and other times it will be people that have, also it's the language, it's the way in which people speak about their own experience. So people often say to us, but I've worked all my life, I'm not a scrounger. It's their own perception is actually that they can't believe it's happening to them because the wider narrative has told them that it only happens to scroungers, so why should it be happening to them? So we have to challenge that language. It's going to be a huge thing for Labour to say, do you know what, actually working age benefits are not enough, we need to increase them. If we're going to say that, that is going to be a really difficult sell to huge parts of the country and huge amounts of like mirror readers who won't necessarily want to hear that stuff. But we have to persuade them, and that's best done on a sort of person-to-person basis. And I was just going to say about Deansgate, I feel the same. Like whenever I go to Manchester, the levels of homelessness in Manchester, and not just Manchester, Birmingham, like Brighton, cities all over the country, it's extraordinary. But let's see what happens next week when the Tories are walking down Deansgate. Week in, week out, maybe some of them will notice some of those people that are living in their sleeping bags and tents down there. So,
Thanks. Kerry, did you want to?
Never remember the name, but you mentioned the homeless question. What the stigmatised for being on universal credit, and like landlords, private landlords would rent houses to people on universal credit. And then obviously if I'm in a social house, or the council house I call it, and under the old benefit system, my housing benefit got paid directly to my landlord. This is just, they just give you it all, which I think is causing many more issues there.
Steve, did you want to come back on the questions and I'll bring Marshall in after you, or do you want to? You go now.
Okay, fair enough. I'll keep it very short because other people have covered off what people were questioning really, and I do want to give Marshall an opportunity to speak as well. I just want to say all of the questions that are raised, really, I mean the only solution really to dignity in life is going to be a change of government. I go back to the need to get this lot out of power, out of Downing Street, and a socialist Labour government elected. That's the way we get dignity. That's the way that we get dignity for all of those that require solidarity support. Whether the largest group, of course, are our pensioners. And dignity in retirement is a huge question. People, again, in retirement, having worked all their lives, are feeling that they're not worthy of a payment. They don't want to claim pension credits, for instance, and therefore they lose their TV licence. They're over 75 or whatever. I mean, it's just obscene, the language, the narrative that's been created about those that are in need of solidarity support. It is an obscenity that we need to change, but we'll only change it, we'll only deal with the housing crisis with 1 million new homes being built under a radical Labour government. That's the reality of it. We'll only deal with those bad landlords and excessive rents and put in rent controls and deal with security of tenure, get back to council house building, all of those questions that do provide dignity for people in wider society in their lives will only come about with the transition to a socialist Labour government. That's the reality of it, and that's my message really to all of you.
Okay, I just want to, really delighted that Marsha de Cordova, who's the DWP Disabled People's Shadow Minister. I'm proud to say that I was knocking up for you the day before you got elected.
Thank you.
So yeah, really pleased about that. Marsha, would you like to address the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just follow on and say thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really pleased that I could make it here this afternoon. Steve's absolutely right, and actually everyone on this panel is, but the only way we can actually bring about change is by getting Jeremy Corbyn into number 10 and having a Labour government, a solid socialist Labour government. That's the only way we can bring about these changes. But in spite of that, what we've seen now with universal credit is nothing short of cruel, unjust and uncompassionate. It is a stain on our society's history, and I want to pay tribute to Unite Community for this work that you've done, because you have shined a light on injustices. You have exposed just how cruel not just the Tory government are, but let's not forget the Liberal Democrats in all of this, because they propped up that Tory government, and they voted through universal credit, they voted through cuts to disabled people, they voted through cuts to housing, so they are just as bad as the Tories, and no one should ever forget what they've done. When you have the UN condemning austerity as systematic and human rights violations against disabled people, we should be ashamed of that, and that is why only a Labour government can actually bring forward a transformative, compassionate social security system. Because when we talk about universal credit, understand this, it was only introduced as a vehicle for cuts, okay? Cuts to families, but cuts to disabled people. And yet again, we've had a High Court ruling that has outlined that by saying the cuts to universal credits, again, was discriminatory against disabled people. That is what we're dealing with, and that is what we're faced with. And I'm proud to be Labour's Shadow Minister for Disabled People, because as a disabled woman myself, I will fight tooth and nail for a Labour government, so that when we do come into power, we will get rid of universal credit. We will replace it with a social security system that is fair, and it has to be compassionate. And frankly, someone mentioned it about the level of benefits. Everybody, whether you're in work or not, deserves an adequate level of income to survive. So frankly, yes, we need to get rid of that negative rhetoric around Skyver shirkers and so forth. You know, that happened under New Labour and it happened under the Tories and the Lib Dems, and we do need to change that. But make no mistake, there needs to be some minimum level of income that somebody in receipt of social security should be able to live on. Because it's not right people are using food banks. In this day and age, how is it that, you know, we saw the Trust have done several reports on this. Last week they did their report on the 5-week wait. That's just cruel, and that was all to save money. No other reason. You start a new job, you ain't got to wait 5 weeks for that salary. But what somebody else has to. So we need to ensure that going forward our social security system is fair. That is why Labour will be scrapping the assessment frameworks for PIP and ESA and replacing it with something that is fair and compassionate. Labour will end that punitive sanctions regime. Because what have we seen? This year the government released figures, over 5,000 ill or disabled people have died following an assessment for employment and support allowance. Another stain on this government. So frankly, I'm up for the fight to get a Labour government. Are you up for the fight to get a Labour government?
So I think we're pretty clear what we need to do. We need to campaign and campaign and get a Labour government. It's really hard to tell when the election's coming. Keep getting a bit confused. If we haven't had an election by Christmas, Unite Community has a week of action against universal credit, and the theme is going to be families that can't afford Christmas. So if you guys aren't in power by then, could you please join us and get out there on the streets and let's campaign and raise awareness about this awful benefit system. So thank you very much for coming today. And just one quick thank you to the author of this report, James Lazoo.
Yep.
James did tell me that it was a really hard thing to write. And it's a hard read, so please take them. I've got some spare copies out there. Please take them away and go back.
Is it online, Leanne?
It's online as well. It's on Unite's website.
I was actually going to just say that the people on the live stream were asking where they can download it.
It's on Unite's website under the Universal Credit page, campaign page.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.